Life is a war. This is the Forge. Welcome to Steel and Scrolls.
What happens when a highly intelligent person with a bright future decides to sacrifice their happiness on the altar of freedom? Does self-inflicted suffering in the name of freedom bring happiness? These are exactly the kinds of questions that Fyodor Dostoevsky tried to answer in his novella, Notes from the Underground. The book is narrated by an unnamed government official, known simply as the Underground Man, and begins with the Underground Man telling us of his present miserable conditions, his poor health, his lack of friends, and his low station in life despite his promising start. Let's explore why he ended up where he did. The Underground Man believes that he is free to choose any action that he desires, even if that action goes against his self-interest. He spends the first few chapters telling of how he chooses to use his free will to spite the people around him. He uses his position in government to bully the people he was employed to help. As a government bureaucrat, his job was to process documents brought to him by the public. He specifically says that he derived pleasure from being rude towards the people who came to him. He says, "I was a spiteful official. I was rude and I took pleasure in being so." This makes him hated in the eyes of the public and probably in the eyes of his colleagues. This self-inflicted isolation was not merely limited to his work. He did this in his personal life too. The Underground Man tells of his servant, Apollon, that he hired to help him around the house. He attempts to assert his dominance by telling Apollon that he will not be paying his wages in an attempt to get him to beg for his wages. Apollon combats these attempts by simply ignoring him or staring him down, and this of course drives the Underground Man mad. The Underground Man later recounts the tale of a dinner he had with former classmates, whom he secretly hated, and how he did everything in his power to make them uncomfortable. Notably, he got drunk and challenged one of the men to a duel. When they eventually ignored him, he paced around in their company for hours on end, trying to make the situation as awkward as possible in an attempt to get them to notice him and take him seriously. By far the most tragic example of him trying to spite someone else was his encounter with a prostitute named Liza. After his catastrophic dinner, he wakes up in a brothel, unaware of how he got there in the first place. He wins her trust by giving a moving speech about how she's leading her life into ruins, and he vindicates her desire to be loved and have a family. She warms up to him and sees him as more than just another customer. He invites her to his house, and when she arrives, he berates her and humiliates her by thrusting money into her hand, reducing their interaction to a merely financial transaction. Why does the Underground Man do this? Why does he intentionally sabotage every good thing that comes his way? He seems to have been equipped with everything necessary to create a happy and meaningful life. He's intelligent enough to create an interesting and fulfilling career, but his self-imposed social isolation, in the form of petty rudeness, prevents him from climbing higher up the ranks. He isn't without the skills to navigate social situations either. He manages to expertly manipulate Liza into trusting him by beautifully articulating her dreams of love and a family. One of the defining characteristics of the Underground Man is that his choices are against his own self-interest. His choices ruin his life in the grandest of schemes, and he does this intentionally to prove a point. The most basic example of this is his refusal to visit the doctor for his illnesses and pains. He even states that he respects medicine and doctors. He just prefers to suffer on purpose because that proves that he has full control over his own life. All of the social interactions he describes have the same theme. He intentionally sours the potentially positive relationship. His relationship with Apollon and his job represent his potential to be a productive member of the world around him. If he chooses to be a good employer and a good employee, he would be more respected by the people around him. I mean, after all, who doesn't love a good boss and a hard worker? His relationship with his former classmates represents his potential to have meaningful, non-romantic relationships with other people. C.S. Lewis once described platonic friendships as biologically unnecessary, like philosophy, like art. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival. Other relationships are needed either for the creation of life, the nurturing of life, or the sustaining of life. friendship does not have any primal instincts associated with it, and therefore Lewis calls it the most angelic of the loves. This is not to discount the creation of meaning associated with family and work, but I think this is an oft-forgotten facet of the human experience. If the underground man chooses to be a good friend, he will undoubtedly add meaning to his life. Finally, the underground man's relationship with Liza represents his potential to have a meaningful romantic relationship beyond the purely physical. To love and to be loved is part of what gives meaning to the human experience. Liza presents an opportunity to redeem his low social standing by engaging in a meaningful romantic relationship. However, when she sees him in his poverty, he feels like he loses control and starts deflecting by humiliating her. Why exactly does he do this? Why does he seemingly intentionally sabotage his life? The answer lies in a simple math equation. 2 times 2 equals 4. To the underground man, this equation represents a somewhat misguided truth that we as humans are merely biological machines. If this is true, then we as humans act in a way that can be predicted. We will always act in a way that maximizes pleasure and avoids pain. If this is the truth, then we have no free will because our actions are predictable. He says, "Twice 2 makes 4 seems to me simply a piece of insolence. Twice 2 makes 4 is a pert coxcomb who stands with arms akimbo, barring your path and spitting." To prove that he has free will, he intentionally chooses to make his life miserable. His solution is to prove that 2 times 2 actually equals 5. He challenges us. Why are you so firmly, so triumphantly convinced that only the normal and the positive, only what is conducive to welfare, is for the advantage of man? This rejection of what is conducive to welfare supposedly proves that he has free will. He ruins his life on a dare, and he succeeds spectacularly. To the underground man, life is a binary. Living as a mindless drone, or living as a raging forest fire. The drone is happy, but he is not free. The forest fire is completely free, but it destroys everything in its path until it suffocates itself for lack of anything to burn. This binary is false, however, and there is a third option that he completely misses. This third option comes with a price: responsibility. Unlike 2 times 2 equals 4, responsibility is not forced upon you by nature. It is something that you willingly pick up. However, unlike 2 times 2 equals 5, it builds something worthwhile. You see, Liza comes to him offering love and meaningful connection. However, love and connection come with a high cost: responsibility. This definition of love comes from Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica. To love is to will the good of another. Loving someone is to accept responsibility for their needs. This is a price that the underground man was unwilling to pay. Dostoevsky gives us a very clear roadmap for how to ruin your own life. You retreat into yourself. You value your own cleverness over connection to others. You reject the world because it isn't perfect, and you reject others because relationships are messy. If you want to truly build a life, you have to pick up the stones of responsibility. You accept the burdens of work, friendship, and love, and you carry them. You won't always carry gladly, but carry them nonetheless. 2 times 2 might equal 4, or 2 times 2 might equal 5. Neither equation matters if you have no one to share the answer with.